Hosted by Mike, the Big Cheese.
Welcome back to the Heavy Metal Mayhem Radio Show. It is March 20th, the first day of spring, and it really feels like it here in New York. We had a great week. I mean, the weather was nice and warm in the 60s, most of it. I hope it stays this way for a while now because I just spent $100 on grass seed, and we did my whole garden, so I hate to lose it with one cold night. All right there, Black Lace. I love these guys. We had them on the show about 5 or 6 years ago. I had Marianne on the show. What a pleasure to talk with them. We've become really good friends since then. We keep in touch. Right there, Run For Your Life off the Get It While It's Hot record from 1985. That was the band's second record. They had Unlaced, I think, 2 years before that, I want to say, or maybe the year before that, in 84. Great band. I always hoped more for these guys, but they kind of fizzled out after this record. They went their own separate ways. They brought another singer in. It didn't quite work out. They changed the name of the band. Marianne wanted to do quite a few other things, involving people with Ace Frehley. And about 2 years ago, our friends over at Heaven and Hell Records released her band No Angels. That stuff was pretty much unheard, since the 80s. So they did a great job on that packaging. If you haven't picked it up, head over to the Heaven and Hell website. I don't even know if there's any more left. I mean, Jeremy over there produces maybe 500 copies of a record, and when they're gone, they're gone. And he did a great job on that one. Maybe at the end of the show, we'll get on a song off of that record. But tonight, Dennis Schwan from Sanction is on the show. Iman wanted to hear from him. Iman got him. He's not in the chat right now. We'll talk to Dennis in about 40 minutes or so. We're going to keep playing more music between now and then. We'll get to what's going on in the world of metal, which isn't really much. Things are starting to pick up again right now, but it's kind of quiet. But how about right now we do a little Live and Death with Nightlight.
favorite lies. For all the pain you pay with your life. Missing action, missing action. The enemy must die. No time to wonder why. Missing action, missing action. Your blood must flow, but you were there by your souls.
Death Dealer with Cross My Way. I've been going through all the Metal Massacre records this week, at least the first 10. I've been playing kind of non-stop, and I figured I'd get that on. That was off of the Metal Massacre record. Death Dealer from Canada, who changed their name to Death Dealer in the mid-'80s. I guess there was an issue with another Death Dealer, but I don't really remember too many back then. There's a lot of them now. There's some band, I want to say they're from Kentucky. They were a bunch of young kids, a thrash metal band, but their logo looks like it was stolen from like another band and just kind of like made them fit what they wanted to do. I got to look them up and see more about it. I remember a couple of years ago seeing that. I think they came out around 2010, somewhere around there. And right before that, Wallop with Missing in Action. Those guys did such an amazing job on that comeback record from 2020. Alps on Fire. We had Mick Wegger on the show around that time. He was a fun guy to talk to. I mean, they really recaptured that early glory from the first record. And it's hard for a lot of bands to do that. Some try to, and it just doesn't work. Some just kind of move on to another direction. But they did it, and, it was pretty cool. All right, I saw that Chuck Billy was saying that, he was talking to Dave Lombardo and he expressed interest in playing on the New Testament record. Now, call me crazy. Aren't all the members in a band supposed to be interested in playing on an album or going on tour or doing things together as a band? I mean, isn't that just supposed to happen? They made this big production, this big build about who the new drummer is going to be, and they announced it. It's like, well, yeah, he shows interest. If you hired him for the band, doesn't he know he's playing on the next record and that one is going to be recorded and coming out, relatively soon? Or did you just kind of hire him to fill in on the drums after Gene left the band for the tour? And now you're going to make another announcement that there'll be another drummer next year. That doesn't make any sense to me, And I talk about how, he contributed, that, with the drums and everything like that, they're already pre-programmed, and all the old drummers in the band sort of came in and just, copied what was done. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, Eric Peterson programs all the drums when he writes the music, and, the drummers kind of take what he did and, recreate it. I find it hard. I mean, Testament has some great drummers in the bands over the years. I mean, and Gene was the last one. He's played with them a couple of times. I find it hard to believe that Gene Hoglan is sitting there saying, show me what you got on your electronic drum program machine. I'll recreate it. He's the kind of drummer that's going to lay down his own beat, as well as Dave Lombardo and any other guy that's been in that band. Unless they were an unknown hired hand who just was told to come in and play, I don't see that happening. But it makes no sense to me. But I don't know. He shows interest, so maybe if he's in the band long enough till the album is recorded, he might be on it. Who the hell knows? It's some weird shit, I tell you. All right, let's get to Saxon. John wanted Saxon off the brand new record, Carpe Diem. Here's Black is the Night.
Ocean is free.
40 years ago yesterday that Randy Rhoads died. Can't believe it's been that long. It's hard to imagine he would have been in his 60s today, you know? Who knows what we've gotten out of him musically over all those years. It looked like he was getting ready to leave heavy metal behind, but you never know. Missed greatly, without a doubt. I was a massive Ozzy Osbourne fan in the very early 80s when those first two records came out. And I kind of still am. He went on a whole different path, over the last 20 years, but he is Ozzy, so what else can you say? All right, we're going to talk to Dennis in about 5 minutes or so. Enough time to get one more song in. I know that Dio documentary came out the other day. I think it was at the festival in Texas. I'm not too sure. Dreamers Never Die. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Hopefully they'll release it on one of the cable outlets or pay-per-view outlets soon. I can check it out. I bought the book Rainbow in the Dark that he wrote when it came out. It's a great book, especially the old stories about him when he was a kid growing up, and he's not working his way through the music business. But because he passed away, it kind of ends in the 80s, and it doesn't go on any further than that. And I wanted to hear about everything that took place after that. I thought maybe there'd be like a ghostwriter or somebody that kind of filled in the blanks, but they left it like that. And it says, when the documentary comes out, it'll continue, towards it till he passed away. So I'm looking forward to seeing that in the documentary. Big Dio fan. I saw there's a new band called Clean Break with James Durbin, who sang with Quiet Riot on American Idol. Who gave this guy his heavy metal card? That's all I want to know. How did this guy become the poster child in the face of heavy metal, and in this decade, in this era? I don't get it. I mean, I think he's a joke, to be honest with you. Those Quiet Riot albums were terrible with him on there. And now he's got this new band called Clean Break, and the promoter like is a super group because it's got Robert Sweet on drums and the bass player from Stripe also used to be in Firehouse. He's only been a Stripe a couple of years. When they kicked Tim Gaines out, he kind of joined the band. And Mike Flynn from the Riot cover band. So I don't expect much of this. And what I love is I believe it's another Frontier Records thing. And the guy who wrote all the songs for the record was one that kind of announced it first, and that's where they took it from. And this was one of the things I've always hated about Frontier Records and everything they put out. Matt Sinner was like their main guy from the band Sinner in Primal Fear. He did a lot of projects, wrote a lot of the music. They have it's like the old days, like in the 50s, where all the writers and musicians reported to the Brill Building in Manhattan, and they wrote songs all day long, and then they found people to sing them that fit to it, and they became famous. This is like what Frontier does. They take people from all over the place, throw them together into groups, right? They have somebody write the music for them most of the time, with most of these artists. And, they put out an album. And either you never hear nothing from them again, or one guy goes on to a different record and this guy goes there. These aren't like real bands that you could support and back up and, want to root for. They're just people thrown together, and they put shit out. Sometimes there's some decent stuff, sometimes there's not. More than likely, you'll never see any of these groups live or performing live, ones at least on the record. Unless it's an album by an established band that was, signed to their contract with them and they're recording and playing and putting songs out. Most of these bands that are thrown together quick are just a bunch of crap, in my opinion. I couldn't never get into any of them. That's just the way it is. All right, enough complaining about that now. It's like one longer formal complaint today. I feel like I should put 800 number up. All right, let's do one more tune. Now, you know what? Let's let's do Borrow Time. This is a band that Dennis played in. He's with them again right now. We'll play this. I'll get him on the phone. Hopefully we'll have our luck and we'll get 2 out of 2 guests on live using this new system. I'm still getting the feel for it, but we'll make it work again. Here you go, Black Olympia. Let's get Dennis on the line. Hopefully we'll go 2 for 2. Dennis, this is Mike. How are you? You're on the air. Hey, hey, it's an honor for me because I get to talk to a fellow New Yorker, so my accent don't sound completely out of place. Well, you're a little better because you have the Long Island accent. That's a little bit more neutral than the Brooklyn one, so you can kind of fit in a little better. But hey, listen, absolutely. I am so happy that I don't know how it came about. We'll talk about it. That the Sanction stuff is finally seeing the light of day. 2 demos from like 30 years ago. Out of nowhere, there's a record all of a sudden. Really? I'm so happy too. They were 2 great demo tapes, 2 different sounding demo tapes for people that were fans and knew the band back in the day. But how did it come about? Somebody showed interest in this, or were you trying to shop it around? Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
I think, and they just did such a good job. And I thought, this is the label I want to release Sanction someday. And it literally took from 2000 or early 2000 to now. And during the pandemic, I decided one of my pandemic projects is to learn some technology because, again, I'm very old school, so I didn't know how to do Instagram or YouTube or any of that. So I said, let me get this stuff up, digitize it, and put a teaser video on YouTube because I know that the world would be interested in this. And a couple of people reached out to me, a gentleman named Charlie and Christine, who now works for Cult Metal Classics. And she said, has anybody made you an offer yet? We would love to sign this. Cult Metal Classics would love to sign this. So literally by the next morning, I put this video on really late at night. By the next morning before I woke up, I had an email from Cult Metal Classics looking to reissue this. So it was my dream label. And it all, like, it was one of those times, rare times in life when a plan works and everything falls in order and comes to play exactly how I had dreamed it would.
I'm so happy that it came about too because these were 2 great demos with amazing songs on there, and to hear them kind of refinished and a whole new light. It's just amazing for somebody who remembers them from back in the day. I mean, how did the whole band come about? I know it was like in the very late '80s, maybe '88, '89.
Yeah, so me and one of the other guitar players on those demos named John Flaherty were in a band, and it was more of a hard rock band, and it was a band called Ledestri. And we used to rehearse in Massapequa in a studio called Massapequa, I believe it was called Long Island Rock Rehearsals or something like that. It was in Massapequa. And he would come see us. This guy named Rick would come and see us. And he would always be wearing Maiden T-shirts. And we became fast friends because I was a big Maiden head. I had the Fender Precision bass. And Steve Harris was a big influence on me. All my bass lines were really, up front, high treble, attack and lots of galloping, obviously. So the drummer of my band, Ledestri, that we were in at the time, he wanted to go in more of a pop direction, more of a like a Bon Jovi type of direction. And then me and John, this other guitar player in the band, we really wanted to do more like Maiden stuff and Metal Church and, early Anthrax and Manowar and that type of stuff. So this guy Rick was just starting to play guitar, and he had an idea for a band. And he would, after rehearsals, he'd be like, "Hey, I could tell you guys are getting, a little disgruntled with the direction this band is going. If you want, I want to form a band and play the kind of stuff that I know you guys want to play, a little bit heavier, a little more like Maiden and stuff." So basically that's what happened. When Ledestri disbanded, we ended up jumping ship basically and forming this band Sanction with Rick Sanfilippo, who had the idea for the band. And we could just live out all our fantasies because we were total Maiden heads. I mean, we were collecting all the Maiden picture discs and 45s back in the day, back when you had to put them on layaway. They cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and there was no eBay or any of that, So we started out, we only had one song. We had a song called Stranded, one original song, and the rest of the songs to fill in until we could get tight as a band were covers. So we did Ramones covers and Manowar and Maiden, obviously. And we just progressed as a band. But our very first show was at the Right Track Inn in Freeport on Long Island. And we did all covers. Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, they had great shows there. So our very first show as Sanction was entirely covers. Ramones, Maiden, Sex Pistols, and then we ended the show as an encore with our one original song, which was the song called Stranded. And the crowd ate it up. They loved it, and we felt so great playing it. And then that really kicked us into high gear, and we rehearsed constantly and wrote new songs and got that demo out. So that's the origins of the band. It started from it was very pure, a pure love of classic metal,
And you can hear in all the songs from that first tape. And, people seem to think that at the stroke of midnight of 1990, heavy metal just died. It just ended, it died, grunge took over, Nirvana was it. It really wasn't like that. In 89, you still thought this was going to go on forever the way it was. I mean, there was changes taking place, but nobody thought it was going to crash and burn. And you guys are just out there now. You got this first great demo tape out. About a year or two later, you put out the second demo tape. Took the band a little bit different direction because it was turning into where it was a much harder and heavier scene. Thrash was picking up by the early 90s, and you guys kind of went with it. And,
we did. You definitely hear the style change.
Yeah. Was it
intentional,
and it was,
or just yeah, I think, the next singer, Carrie, was definitely incredibly powerful voice, and totally Ian Gillan, inspired. Screams, but melodic screams, and tons of power. I mean, he honestly didn't even need a PA system. People always said you could hear him from the back of the room, even without the microphone. You could just hear his natural voice. He had such incredible projection and everything. And we were starting to personally lean a little heavier too. Like I say, we were into Metallica, Overkill, Metallica when they were good. I'm ashamed to say that now, but Metallica when they were good, they used to be really good.
I know, I agree with you.
Yeah, Overkill, Anthrax definitely had an influence on us. So it was a natural progression, and it just fit his voice better to get a little heavier. And it was more fun. We were young, and our playing got better. We matured, all of us, and we got tighter as a band. So I think it was more challenging for us to get more technical and faster as musicians, and you could definitely hear it. You could hear the increase in being more technical, more changes, much faster, that's for sure.
Easily. I mean, as somebody who's been in the business for a long time, you've seen the changes that have taken place with, genres of music and the way bands record and the way music is put out there. I mean, if you go back to the early Sanction days, that was when you had to go around and hand out flyers, post them up on telephone poles, word of mouth with friends in the clubs. Did you find it was actually easier or better back then to draw a crowd or an audience or to get people to know who the band was than it actually is today in any band you're playing in with the internet?
Yeah, I don't know that it was easier, but I think you had better results because the people you did reach were way more focused and willing to come. Like I feel like now there's such an oversaturation of information and everything that, they might like you on Facebook or whatever, but that doesn't mean they're going to show up to your show or buy your CD necessarily. Whereas back then, if you could get a flyer in someone's hand, or we used to go to Slip Disc, we used to go to Agents of Fortune, places like that, and you were really communicating more directly. I feel like obviously not the same amount of numbers as you could reach on the internet, but the people you reached were usually more passionate and more willing to get direct results, I feel like.
No, I agree. And one thing I've always said when, I talk to bands is like, back in the 80s, like, you talk about the Right Track In, and we had Lemoore in Brooklyn, a few blocks from my house, and there was Lemoore East in Queens, and these were hangouts.
Oh, yeah.
You went there on a regular basis. You didn't go there because, Overkill was playing or this band. You just went there to hang out. It was your club. You watched every band that was up on the bill that day. Some you knew, some you didn't. There was like a camaraderie. It was like we were all in this together. Where today, you go to a club and people go at the last second, they get a drink, they watch the band, they go home. It's not like that.
Exactly.
It's missing,
Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree. I kick myself now. I cry about, I tell, younger people, I'm, the ranting old men, which we do sound like right now, but it's okay. I'm proud of it. But, we used to drink in the parking lot through bands that now I would travel to Europe or across America to see, but we took it for granted because look, the opening bands were just as good as the headliners. And it could be a Wednesday night and you could be seeing like, Manowar, Motorhead, Dio, Accept. It was, and we would, some of these bands, I remember drinking in the parking lot at Sundance for like Fate's Warning or something. Now I could kill myself for doing that. But back then we were just like, oh, it's, good metal is everywhere.
Yeah.
It really was a dream time. It was, it was like the Disneyland of heavy metal to be in New York in those days.
It really was. And we're lucky that we kind of lived through that. A lot of people look at me like, you mean you saw all those bands? I'm like, not only I saw those bands, I paid about $5. I saw 3 of them at a time. We were in a club hanging out with beers. Maybe people bitched back then, but
and you're right. And you made friends. You made friends. You didn't. Everyone goes home right away. Right now, as soon as that last band hits the last note hasn't even rung out, and they're putting the house lights on and kicking everybody out the door. We used to hang out afterwards. That was just as fun as the show. It's more sterile now. I feel like it's more organized and planned, and there is less of that camaraderie and that that spontaneity and just that hanging out. I definitely agree with that.
It's so true. Like I remember the first show I went to, recently. Everybody was doing that. The band wasn't even done yet. People were pouring out of the club. I'm like, it reminds me when I was a kid and my father took me to a Ranger game and we had to leave before the end of the last period because he didn't want to get stuck in traffic on the staircase going down Madison Garden, and then everybody's screaming because they scored the winning goal. Like, oh, man.
Right. That's usually the best part. Yeah, and especially it shows. If you would hang out, you never knew who was going to come out into the audience and hang out. Yeah. I remember at Sundance, Lemmy from Motorhead out, was just playing the arcade game there. I think it might have been Space Invaders at the time. So that stuff would happen all the time, places like CBGB's, obviously that was a big draw. The Ramones would be hanging out there, bands would hang out. So in the crowd too were a ton of bands and important people in the scene. So that was, you networked obviously really well, but the flyers and business cards and all of that, writing people's names and phone numbers on napkins. That was all how we did it back then.
Yeah, I know. They were great times. But you know what? Music is still great, and you're putting out new music. Going back to Sanction, the second demo comes out now. I mean, how much longer did the band go on after that? Did it kind of all collapse right after that demo tape, or did you go on for a little bit
did. It kind of fizzled out for a variety of reasons. Going back to what you said, things didn't die immediately, obviously, but we felt a change for sure. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the clubs were not as eager to book us. It was harder to get good gigs. People were less interested. Like in the like, I don't know, I'm thinking like maybe 93-ish area, 92, 93, when everything became Pearl Jam and Nirvana. It certainly didn't kill metal, obviously. I mean, there was still great metal, but it hampered it a little. Like, places that were offering us gigs on a regular basis were not so eager now, because I remember hearing the term cheesy a lot, and not cheesy in the hair metal, but if you had a singer, particularly, everyone's focused on the lead singer, obviously. If you had a singer that could actually sing, that all of a sudden, rather than be respected and awed, it was like considered cheesy, and I remember hearing those things. We don't want to, we want, just a regular old guy. We don't want a singer that could actually perform well and sing, and have like training and stuff. That all of a sudden became a negative, which was very interesting.
The one thing that always boggled my mind was they were like, grunge took over, and like Pearl Jam and Nirvana, and that was what was going on, and there was no room left for metal anymore. Like you're saying, clubs didn't want to book you guys; they wanted to go with the new sound was. And I'm like, what happened to the millions of metalheads that 2 days earlier were listening to all these bands? Are you telling me overnight all the fans all of a sudden say, you know what, that's garbage? It sounds like it sounds like the Josie and the Pussycat movie. They were brainwashing them with the music and the headphones. I mean, how did they
some of them did. Right. Not all of them did, of course, but some of them did. I mean, I personally witnessed people I knew, cut their hair and definitely start going more grunge. And Alice in Chains, that was a kind of one of those bands that they felt comfortable making the transition. And everything changed. The image started to change. The leathers started to go away, and I got to be more flannels and stuff, and the hair got shorter. So it definitely was a thing. But the real true metalheads, I mean, you can't just flick it off like a switch. I know it sounds cheesy to bring that word back up, but the true metalheads, I mean, we live it. Guys like I'm talking about, like our friend Iman O'Connor and stuff, we really live it. So even if we wanted to turn that switch off, it's not even possible. Yeah, because we truly live it. It's not just like a casual music listener. It literally is our lives. It's all we think about. It directs almost everything we do, So you can't just turn that off.
No,
so obviously we went on and still loved that music and still listened to it and sought it out.
Yeah. What did you do?
But in life, well, it went on. Another thing that creeped in is we got older too. All the timing, I've always said if Sanction would have started just a little earlier, and I really believe this, if we started a year or two earlier, I think we really would have made it a lot bigger. I think we would have got signed to a major label. I think we just missed the boat, and not only because of the trends changing in music and all, but we got older. I mean, as far as myself personally, I was going to college, I was working a job, I had less time, and I know that stressed the band out at the time. Matter of fact, some of their last gigs, I didn't even play. Because I couldn't, and then, I kick myself now for that. But at the time, I was a little overwhelmed with work and school and stuff, and I had trouble juggling it all. But they actually played a couple of shows without me, and tried to carry on, but it just kind of all ended up fizzling out because of, I feel like, also because of just, getting older, growing up. The timing was there, and metal wasn't as good, so we were had less incentive. We were less, the fire was taken away a little bit. I think those things all combined at the perfect time to just let it dissolve, unfortunately.
Did that keep you out of music for a while? I mean, most of the 90s?
It did. It honestly did because I kind of went the quote unquote adult route, which I quickly disbanded and gave up, and it's not for me. But there was a period of time where I was like, all right, I'm going to go to school and just work and so I kind of expressed my passion for the music as a fan. I still went to shows. I never stopped going to shows. I would always go to shows, no matter how far they were. I went to, some of the early prog power festivals in Atlanta, Georgia, when they were booking bands that no one would touch. No one even knew who they were in America, so people would fly from all over the world. And then I expressed it through collecting. I've always been an avid collector. So, but I stopped playing as much. So I went a while without actually playing in a band and just being a fan, just being on the other side of it. And then I did some promotion and some DJing as well on Long Island. I promoted a few shows with a friend. We did some shows at a bar called the Funky Monkey, which was in Long Beach, I think. I believe it was Long Beach or Oceanside, somewhere in that area. So we promoted some other bands because that was less pressure. Being in a band, it's incredible fun and all, but it is a lot of work. People don't realize, it's like, especially to get tight, and especially back then, before computers and cell phones. God, I sound like an old man again, but I am. But, we didn't have the luxuries of today. We certainly didn't have the luxuries of what we can do now, jamming online and sending in parts and stuff. We were all together in a room, all day and all night sometimes. So you really had, it literally took up your entire life, especially to be good, to be tight, to be stage ready. It took up a large chunk of your life. You had to dedicate a big chunk of your life to it. And then you've got, things like relationships, girlfriends, jobs, school, all of these things creep in, and it's very hard to manage,
It were you done with music? I mean, as far as being in a band goes, while you were in New York, it was when you moved that you started up, was Borrow Time or Saddle Shelf? Because they both were around the same time. Was that your first time dipping your toes back into the band scene?
The very first time was in a band called Miles Beyond. And they were out of Flint, Michigan.
Okay.
And I came and saw a show. I believe it was Sonata Arctica. I saw a show here in Detroit at a famous Detroit club called Harpo's. And there was this opening band, and they blew me away. I was like, who the hell is this? My first thought was they were a German band or something. They were amazing. Incredible guitar harmonies, great songs, catchy, They had it all. Incredible guitar solos, great vocalist. I was like, who the hell is this band? I got to find out. I've never heard of this band, Miles Beyond. They must be some German band or something I never heard of. Went up and talked to them afterwards, find out they're from Flint, Michigan, of all places. So I'm now living in Michigan. I said, for a long shot, I said, look, I thought I was honest. I haven't played in a while, but I love your band so much. This is the type of music I really am itching to get back in. I would love to play bass for you guys if you ever need a bass player. Didn't think anything of it. Well, it turns out their bass player at the time was the brother of the singer. He was going through what I was just talking about. He had a family, a job. He was, he couldn't really dedicate the time he wanted to. So he said to them, seek out another bass player to do live shows because I know you guys still want to do it. So literally, I don't remember exactly how long. It was only a few months, I think, possibly weeks. I got a call from them to try out. And so Miles Beyond was my first band. I actually got the job as the bass player, and that really got me back into playing, and I realized how much I missed it.
That was great. Did you ever record anything with the band, or was it just strictly live at the time?
Strictly live. They have recordings, but I only did live gigs with them because the brother decided to come back, and and that kind of thing. So I was kind of just a live fill-in. So there's only live recordings, and they are on YouTube under the name Miles Beyond. We toured around here. We did like Michigan, Ohio, places like that. Had some really great shows. They're unbelievably Iron Maiden influenced. I mean, as soon as you hear them, you hear Iron Maiden. So I was a perfect fit. They were a perfect fit for me, to slide in there and do my kind of Steve Harris style, Joey DeMaio style bass playing in there. So it was a perfect fit. So that really got me excited again. Then at the Miles Beyond shows, I ran into these guys. We kept running into, when you go to shows, you keep running into the same people because you like the same things. So you're like instant friends because you have this mutual understanding. You don't even really have to know each other, but you look at the band T-shirt. It's like, okay, we're friends now. You get a beer and that's it. So I kept running into the same guys, and one of the guys' names was JP, which I believe was on your show. I'm sure you know him, John Pierre.
Oh yeah, John Pierre from Travel.
Yeah.
Now Travel.
So he was exactly. Yeah. So he was coming to Miles Beyond shows, and kind of the same thing. It's funny how this all works. It's all the same. We're all the same. Metalheads, like, it's kind of poetry. It all goes in circles. So he would come up to me after shows and be like, hey, I'm really into this. I know you're really into like the new wave of British heavy metal thing. I've got this band. We're looking to do it also as a live band. He had a demo with Borrowed Time, but they didn't have a live band set up. It was more of just a studio demo, but the other guys also had commitments. Again, it keeps coming up. It's hard to do the heavy metal thing as an adult. There's just so many commitments. So a lot of guys couldn't do it. So these guys didn't want to do the live thing. They only wanted to do the studio. So he needed members to do a live band. And we actually started, before Borrowed Time, I'm jumping the gun a little, we started in a band called Shadow Self. That was the first band, Shadow Self. And it was an interesting mixture of like raw new wave of British heavy metal and like thrash. One of the guitar players, Joe King, he had a little bit of a heavier taste. He liked some heavier stuff. So we had an interesting taste. I don't know if you ever heard any of the Shadow Self stuff, but you can hear a lot of different influences.
Feel for the Fire, I think was one.
Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. You really do your homework. Yeah. You know your stuff. Yeah, so you obviously can hear the true metal roots. Everything I play, you're going to hear a little bit of Steve Harris, a little bit of Maiden, because that's just in my blood. He was my idol, and I know it sounds cliche, but he had such an influence on so many people, and I've always been proud of it. I never wanted to hide it. I'm loud and proud to be. If somebody says you sound just like Steve Harris, you can't give me a better compliment. A compliment.
Yeah,
so you hear that, but then you hear like Joe bringing in that heavier dynamic. And I think it's a very interesting mix. I really do. Some people, get turned off by it, but a lot of people find it interesting because of those different influences combining into one. And then that band eventually fizzled out as well. But then we kind of jumped, me and JP and the drummer, Danny, at the time, from Shadow Self, then formed the live band of what became the live version of Borrowed Time.
And you spent a lot of years with that band. I mean, between now and about a year or two ago, I think you were out of it for a while, but you came back. Into the fold again.
Yeah, we did. We recorded some 45s. We did some 45s with an Irish, a really cool Irish record company. God, my memory's going to be mad at me, but I can't remember the name of it right now. But it'll come to me. But we did a 45 for a song called Fog in the Valley. We got signed to High Roller Records also, and we did some releases with them. And then I was eventually out of the band. We kind of went through a Spinal Tap phase in Borrowed Time. It's if you look at our roster of band members, it gets kind of funny towards the end, but a lot of rotating members in and out. But then they went on to record a full-length album as well that I am not on, but they recorded under High Roller. But we spent a lot of time with that band, lots of gigging for sure, lots of rehearsing. We recorded a bunch of stuff.
Being in bands, it could be a tricky thing. I mean, sometimes it's just like bands break up because management problems, things aren't going anywhere. A lot of like what happened with Sanction back then, people's lives move on. And then you have like where there's a lot of friction between the members and you just can't get along and you leave a band. What do you think is the hardest part about keeping a band together? Even if it's just like a local band playing, cover songs or, a bunch of friends that want to get together. What's the key ingredient, do you think, to keeping guys, together and happy? I know it's like being married to 4 or 5 different people at one time. And it's hard to be married to one sometimes,
yeah.
But,
I tell you, a lot of people will probably be mad at me for this, but for my personal opinion, it's our idiot guy egos. That is really what it all comes down to. You really have to be mature and have a sense of humble and a sense of compromise. But for some reason, and it doesn't matter if you're a nothing garage band or you're a big multi-million-dollar selling band playing arenas, it's that same thing that when you're being creative with other men and women, I would imagine, I can't speak from experience, but I would guess, but with men particularly, I could speak for, we have this stupid ego thing that creeps up. And I am totally guilty of it. And even people you wouldn't think are guilty of it, I don't know what it is. It comes out, and all of a sudden you get this stupid, I don't know what, this battle for egos and control and power. And again, you don't even have to be talking about money. That cannot even be serious money involved. When you get real money involved, it really gets crazy, as you can see what goes on every day with big bands. But it is just this crazy little, weird little part of us, this ego thing. And you get into these petty, immature, like schoolboy battles of ego that can end up, destroying things. And it's really kind of sad, but it just seems to be the name of the game for whatever reason.
Yeah, I have to give credit to the bands that are able to compromise and put it behind them. Because I'm sure, I was in a band myself back in the 80s, but I wrote most of the music and the band loved it because they didn't have to do it, so I didn't have that issue. But I can imagine, like, when you're writing songs and somebody criticizes it and they go back and forth, it must, like, really be difficult, like, on your ego when people criticize what you're doing and you're the only one trying to do it.
Yes. Yep. And it's easy to lose yourself. It's easy to lose your head. It really is. Like I say, even if you're a small time band not having any real success, even if you're not having monetary success or whatever, I don't know what it is. But, I think part of that is what makes musicians, and I'm sure this happens in other, anything like any artistic field, I'm sure it happens as well. But I kind of like my artists a little crazy and with egos. And that was also part of grunge that I didn't like. Like I'm, as a Manowar fan, and I don't know how you feel about Manowar, but I love old Manowar. To me, old Manowar is some of the greatest U.S. heavy metal ever created, and it will never be topped.
The Roster Boss.
But Joey DeMaio he's a character, and he's a little crazy.
Yes,
and
he is.
And it's gotten worse over the years. And I'm not such a big Manowar fan now, unfortunately. I'm hoping he changes his ways and sees the light, but I don't really have much hope for that. But I always say I want my Joey DeMaio to be like that. I don't want him to be level-headed and normal because that would be so freaking boring. You know what I mean? Like, I want those musicians on the stage to be extraordinary and have a little bit of attitude and be a little cocky and so it's not all bad. I like a little bit of that ego in metal bands,
He's got a lot of ego. I mean, Ross the Boss has been on my show so many times, and he tells stories about him. And sometimes, I laugh because being that I was there when they were first getting started and playing and seeing them, I know what he's talking about. But other people must be shaking their head saying that can't be real. He has to just be over exaggerating, making up. But I'm like, no, he's not. I go, besides waiting 35 minutes for the Kabuki music when they were playing live, he came on. He was full of attitude. That guy.
Oh, God, yeah. And he's the real deal. He lives that 24/7. It is not shtick. I mean, he truly believes. So I give him credit for that, and people like that. I really like that. I like people that are so dedicated. Speaking of Manowar, another band, and going back to Long Island, Virgin Steel is another example. David DeFay. Incredible personality. Nowhere near to the level of Joey DeMaio. I'm not implying that. But he's eccentric in his own way. He's an artist. When David DeFay or Joey DeMaio walk into a room, they're not just an accountant or some normal guy. You know what I mean? They carry this air of an artist about them. And I really love that. some people say, oh, he's an asshole, he's pompous. You'll hear those words, but I think that's fucking great, particularly for a front man in a band. That's how I like it. I like them to be something special, something out of the ordinary, above and beyond the norm. I can see the norm every day. When I go to a show, I want escapism, and I want to see somebody over the top,
You're absolutely right. At least with David is Virgin Steel. I mean, he records everything, every instrument on the record. He's everything. Keyboards, guitar, bass, drums. He does it all live. He's got other people that are in the band, but they're just like in the band for the live show technically. But he does everything. At least
he's the mastermind.
Joey lets Eric sing it a little bit.
Right. Oh, it's so true. I know.
Yeah,
so that's kind of the. So good. Oh, I love that stuff so much, and that's where I come from. So, even though I'm saying it's the ego thing can be very damaging, but it can also be very good, because it also gives you that little bit of like that friction in the band, the competition even within the band. You know what I mean? It kind of makes you up in your game almost. And I think it gets better results. I mean, it's a thing that's been famous in heavy metal forever. I mean, Deep Purple, Ian Gillan and Richie Blackmore, even rock and roll, the Black Crowes, the two brothers, the Robinson brothers, it's existed since, it's Fleetwood Mac. I mean, it goes on and on and on, this conflict in the band that really created this incredible art,
True. I mean, we always see bands that come out. I mean, it doesn't have to be metal. It could be any genre. And you're like, how the hell did these guys make it? How did this band become famous? How did they get to this place? And you have to say, I mean, being in a band, is it timing and luck and being in the right place at the right time more so than talent and writing great songs?
I think it is. I think as sad as it is, I mean, look at all the amazing bands who fell through the cracks. I mean, again, going back to our roots, I mean, Riot is, to me, and obviously they're having a resurgence now, but in my opinion, and I'm not exaggerating at all, Riot should have been as big as Van Halen. There's no reason why they shouldn't have been as big as Van Halen. They had poppy, catchy songs that would have been radio friendly. The talent is, beyond normal. I mean, unbelievable. But yet, Riot remained this unknown underground band for so long, and still, it's such a crime. But then you get a band like Poison, and nothing against Poison. In my old age, I could even appreciate Poison now. Back in the day, I had no time for them. And, now I'd rather listen to Poison than some newer metal or new metal or whatever you want to call it, whatever it's called now. So I've gotten a little more lenient towards that stuff. But, look, a band like Poison, like I think C.C. DeVille as a guitar player would acknowledge all of these other incredible guitar players that are so much better than him that will never have a quarter of his success,
True.
It's kind of a crime. It is a crime, but you can't wish bad on the band that made it. It's all the best to them that they somehow made it. They had that luck to make it, but there's no justice, nor will there ever be justice in the world of music. I don't believe it's possible.
No, you're right. And, I'm not like the biggest Poison fan, but, C.C. DeVille, that's not his real name if people don't know it already, but he grew up a few blocks from me in Brooklyn where I lived, and he was in a lot of local bands.
Oh,
so
really? Wow.
I've seen him his whole life playing. He was in a band called Lace here in New York, where the singer was Desiree. They were like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They dressed like they were like, a Frankenfurter for them. They were a heavy, they were a great band. And he took off, and next thing you know, I'm like, why does this guy look so familiar? And then it's C.C. DeVille now, and he's in Poison. So I was kind of happy that a local guy made it and everything. But you're right. It's just the right place at the right time. I don't know what it is. And we lost so many great bands that couldn't make it. And Sanction could have been one of them. Like you said, a couple of years earlier, things would have been different maybe. You don't know. It's all playing Monday morning.
I really think so. I really do think so. But then the other thing is, though, I have a friend that always talks to me about it and says it's probably for the best, because can you imagine, even with these bands, like I was saying, when bands don't even have any real stakes involved, when we're not even talking about big money or whatever, there's trouble, there's egos, there's fights, dumb things. Now imagine escalating that. What if we did make it? Then, to say nothing of like potential drug problems, alcohol problems, all these stories that play out again and again and again that come with the fame, with everything. So sometimes you never know. It might be a blessing in disguise that we never got big, and now we're still here and able to have this rebirth and appreciate it again, Well,
now that you do have this rebirth, what is the status of Sanction these days? Is it something that's going to happen again?
So I really want it to, and I have a game plan that I would like it to play out. Now, whether it's going to be reality or not, time will tell. Almost all of the guys are still active doing one thing or another. So still performing and still have their chops up. So it is very possible. The guitar player Rick is in a band called Vicious Licks in California. He lives in California. So we are separated now. The drummer, Jamie, he does a bunch of different things. He's like JP, Jean-Pierre, one of these guys that's like in 20 bands at all times and doing all kinds of things. He's in a New York Slayer tribute, which I believe they're called Show No Mercy. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
No,
I think that's his most... Yeah, called Show No Mercy, really great Slayer tribute. So I know he does that as long as... I think he also has a couple of projects coming out. He does a lot of projects. So everyone is still involved, Our old singers are both still involved in singing in bands. So I think it's very possible. It's really going to be a matter of, again, will we have time and the distance thing. But I want to do it. So my game plan, if everything goes right, is we still have some more stuff to potentially release. We still have a couple of recordings. I'd like to maybe do a couple of 45s, maybe some colored vinyl limited edition 45s with a couple of the tracks we haven't released yet. I have a couple of live recordings that I'd really love to release as a live album. I've got a recording from the Right Track In. I think they might both be Right Track In, or maybe one is from Sundance, but it's both versions of the band. So I have the version from the first demo with the first singer, Fritz, and then I have a live show with Carrie, the second singer. So I really hope to release that as a double live album. I think would be really cool. And then I have a vault. I'm a keeper. I keep everything. So I kept all the old flyers and all the old recordings. We used to just put cassette tapes in and just record our rehearsals back then. Just let the tapes play until they ran out over and over. And then we'd run to the car and grab any blank tape we could find or tape over other tapes, and put them in. So I have songs that we never finished. Actual, recordings that we just never properly put down and recorded, but were like 90% done. So I really hope, that we can finish those. That's my dream, my final dream for this. The first step is already done, and if all that is what comes of it, I'm already happy because we've got the CD out now, which we never got to do back in the day. We only released cassettes back in the day, which was also fantastic. But to get CD, and now the vinyl's coming up in 2022. The vinyl got delayed a little bit because of all the supply chain issues and everything. But those 2 demos of Sanction will be released on vinyl in 2022 on Cult Metal Classics. That's going to be my real dream because as being an old school metalhead, there's that sacredness of vinyl.
That's right.
To have something on. So when I have the Sanction demos on vinyl, that's going to really be a big moment and a real dream come true because I always wanted to do the vinyl back then, but we just couldn't afford it back then, to do on our own. And then I really hope to record some new material, finish these old songs, and then record a little bit of new material. That's my hopes and dreams for this. So I'm hoping we can make it happen.
That would be great. If you weren't able to make it happen with the other members of the band, would you consider doing it on your own with different members where you are now, or does it have to be the bulk of the guys that played on the earlier tapes?
Me personally, I can only speak for myself, but me personally, it would have to be with the other guys. Yeah, 'cause to me, it wouldn't. If I'm going to do something else, I would name it something else and do something else. If it's going to be Sanction, I really want to have those original guys. But I'm very nostalgic like that. I don't know how the other guys would feel. We'd have to ask them, but I wouldn't want to do it without them. For sure. I would have to have them on board for sure. Especially, Rick, not especially, but, he was the one, like I say, that it was his idea. He started, he kind of recruited us out of another band. You know what I mean? It was his baby and we helped realize his baby kind of thing. And to do it without him, it just wouldn't make any sense,
Yeah, no, I get that. Musically, where do you think the band would be right now? Or how would the band sound on those new songs? Would you look to recapture that earlier sound? Because 30 years, a lot of influences coming out of all your lives. You're playing differently now than you did back then. I mean, do you think you would recreate that classic Sanction sound, or would it kind of go in a little bit of a different direction based on 30 years of influence?
I think it would. I think stylistically it would be an exact mixture of both demos. I think it would. Except I think the playing would be a little more mature even because of other, obviously being musicians for a lot longer now and even just being fans and having, like you're saying, more influence, more input from just listening to other kinds of music. So I think it would be basically the same with just better musicianship. I think we'd be more capable even of doing things that we had only dreamt of or imagined in our head. Because even from the first demo to the second demo, like I say, you can hear the progression of our playing. So now with all these years later and all of our different experience under our belt, I think it would mature up to even another level, but still have those roots, those original roots, those true metal roots for sure.
Man, I hope it all happens because I'm looking forward to it. And for people that don't know, they know you as the bass player in these bands, but you also sing, and you're pretty damn good at it too.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow, you really do your homework. You know your stuff. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
I'm definitely a better bass player than a singer, but I try. I try to sing.
Is it hard when you put down the bass and just have the microphone? Because, I know a lot of musicians, they have to put down their instrument and they sing for the first time in a band. They're like, I'm kind of lost. Like, what do I do with my hands?
Exactly. It is so hard and so awkward, and it is a totally different dynamic. Well, yeah, I started singing. I actually, the first live version of Borrowed Time, I sang for. There is a video up on YouTube somewhere. I believe it's the song Fog in the Valley, Borrowed Time, and we were playing a place here in Detroit called St. Andrews Hall. And I was the singer, and JP, who became the singer, was on bass. And I was so awkward. And so, not only do you not know what to do with your hands because you don't have the bass, but the focal point is on you as a singer 100% of the time, which is so different. No one gives a shit about the bass player. You know what I mean? Like I could be on fire and barely anybody would notice as a bass player. But when you're a singer, everyone is looking to you. So even the simplest thing like banter in between songs or something, I forgot that I had to do that. All of a sudden, I'm like, wait, there's a silence. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I have to say something here. This is my job. Were you waiting for the singer to
say something?
Yeah. Then I realized I'm the singer. So it is. Let me tell you, singers deserve the utmost respect. I mean, all instruments are hard, but me personally, I think singing is like the hardest thing you can do. Not only is it incredibly difficult because you're using, your natural voice, you're using part of your body, but, like I said, everything's on you. All eyes are directed at you. You're controlling the whole energy of the show, the give and take of the crowd energy and everything, and that's why, singers like Bruce Dickinson, are so great because, if you command the room, you're like a conductor of the energy of the room, and a good singer with good charisma and good stage presence has that energy to, whether it's a little tiny bar or a massive outdoor gig with 275,000 people, a singer like Bruce Dickinson can reach every single person. And that's an incredible talent to have.
It is. People
There's not many guys that
don't realize
can do
until they actually get up there, what it takes. You're the conductor, you're conducting the orchestra.
Yeah, and the adrenaline starts kicking in, and the energy and the lights, and you can forget words of songs backwards and forwards. I mean, I sang in some heavy metal tribute bands too. I did some bands here in Michigan, Dark Avenger, Rock and Roll Children, Denim and Leather, singing classic. I was singing songs like The Trooper. Okay, I've known that song. I've listened to that song probably literally 100,000 times. I would forget the words sometimes as, when I'm the singer all of a sudden because there's more pressure on, And afterwards you kick yourself like, I was just singing it in the shower, like how would I forget the words to The Trooper? But it happens. So singing it's a really tough position. It really is. I have utmost respect for incredible singers. It's something else.
Yeah. How's the scene there today? I mean, back in the 80s, they had a great metal scene, especially Harpo's. That was like their Lemoore in a way. Like, everybody went to that club for every show. I mean, how is it today? Is it still pretty vibrant? I mean, I know things have been really bad with COVID, but I mean, before then. Yeah,
it seems like it's coming out of it. You bring up Harpo's, a guy named Roosevelt, who owned another famous club called Blondie's here.
Yeah.
He now owns Harpo's. So he's been putting some effort into it and getting shows again. So I have high hopes for spring and summer. And then there's a lot of underground stuff going on here. There's a great club called Sanctuary, and there's a lot of good guys. All the Borrowed Time guys and all the guys that gravitate in that circle. Guys like Victor Ruse, who's from Borrowed Time, and JP. Now with Traveler and 80 million other bands. JP's another one of these guys who's just like, I don't know how he fits it all in. He's like in 20 bands at once, and he's constantly writing, and it's absolutely fantastic. and a guy named Joe Cady from the band Shadow Self that I mentioned. They're actually in a new band now. So there's a lot going on in the underground scene here as well. And all these guys are, again, you know, truer than true. We're all metal nerds and all, you know, who has the rarest record, and, you know, everybody's buying and selling and trading rare records all the time and re-releases. So it's very vibrant in that sense, that true metal. It's underground, but like I say, you know, one true metalhead, in my opinion, it is worth, you know, Manowar said this way before me, but it's worth 1,000 of what we call normies, you know what I mean, normie rock fans. Because we live it. We're so passionate. So there's so much passion, and, you know, we'll lose money, you know, to have a band or go to shows or, you know, travel across, risk losing jobs even to go see shows. You know, that's what it means to live it, you know. Or, you know, going back to our mutual friend there, Iman O'Connor, I got to give a shout out to him. He also helped set up this interview. No bullshit. He is the truest of the true. He literally has gone without food to buy rare metal records. That's the God's honest truth.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He was yelling at me at the beginning of the show because I forgot to put your mic on. So the first, like, 20 seconds, nobody could hear you. It was only going to say hello.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Yeah, it was only going to say hello.
By now, they probably wish you kept the mic off. They're probably sick of hearing me yak. Huh?
No. You know what it is? I did my show on another site for like 12 years, and I started doing it on here about a month ago, and I'm still getting the feeling for the switchboard. So I forget to click the button sometimes. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I can't hear Dennis. I'm like, oh, crap. I forgot to hit the button.
Oh, that's so funny.
But we didn't get into
that was probably my best part. That was probably my best part of the segment, too.
It was hello, so we're okay.
Yeah, right.
It was mostly greeting each other. I feel bad.
Oh, I am so old school. I'm so old school with technology. It's ridiculous. One of my pandemic projects was to figure out this YouTube thing and to do the Sanction demos and figure out how to make a YouTube video. And, you know, I know now a 6-year-old kid could do that, but for me, it was a massive undertaking. So I'm really proud of myself. So I was able to finally start a YouTube channel. It's called Tales of True Metal. And I'm still a beginner, very basic, but I really learned a lot. And for me, it was a big deal because I don't learn technology easy. I'm super old school, so.
I know how you feel. I'm used to having a double cassette tape recorder, you know, the radio with the 2 cassette, put one tape on one side, recording on the other. That's how I did it my whole life.
Yeah, you know, that first Sanction demo that we did was made officially, but it was made in something, I don't even know if these exist anymore, but it was made in basically an old warehouse that just had racks, I mean, from floor to ceiling of double cassette decks.
Yeah.
Making these, like, in mass, you know, like, I can't even remember how many we pressed. I don't remember if it was 250 or 500, but whatever it was this massive room of double cassette decks. It's amazing. You know, kids nowadays, I don't think could even imagine. It would look ridiculous to them.
They couldn't even figure that out like we did, you know, and we're the same way with the internet and all this new technology. But you know what? We'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah,
slowly but surely. You know, I really hope to eventually have, like, you know, live streams so I could have guys like you on, guests on, and other band members, and have, you know, virtual meetups and have us talk about this stuff all as, you know, like a roundtable type of thing on a live stream that's really what I want to do. So I have to just learn a bit more with the technology and, you know, probably get some better equipment too. But that's the route I'm headed. I really would love to do that. So I'm hoping in the next year to make that happen as well.
Oh, I hope so, and I'll be right there with you, supporting you and listening to it. But Dennis, I'm gonna have to cut. I could talk to you forever. I'm gonna have to cut you loose because we only got about 15 minutes left in the show, and I want to get on some music after this. But man, I had a great time talking with you today, and maybe we'll do this again. The next thing you put out, come back on here, and we'll do this all over again, and we'll catch up.
Absolutely, I would love to. It was a great honor. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm sorry the first, like, 15 seconds didn't come through. They hear me, they don't hear you, but all the good stuff is there, so don't worry. I do apologize.
No problem. That's perfect for me. That makes it even more special. That's great.
Thank you, my friend. You take care. Have a great night.
All right, brother. Cheers. Hail.
Bye-bye. All right, Dennis, what a great guy to talk to. How about we get us some Sanction right now, and then we'll follow it up with, I don't know. We'll play it by ear. But here you go, Sanction. Sanction. What a great time talking to Dennis. I have to apologize that the first 20 seconds of the interview didn't go through. I'm still getting confused with all the setup over here, and it's taking me a little while. You got to switch the headphones over to one cable to hear the person on Skype. You got to switch the Skype account over to a VB cable. And I had a little sticky note up here, and it must have fell. I forgot. But I realized it when Iman told me about it, so we're okay. You didn't really miss much. We were just talking, saying hello to each other. But Dennis was a great guy to talk to. I'm looking forward to having him back on the show one day. All right, we're almost done. We'll play maybe 2 more songs, 3 more songs, and we'll wrap it up over here. Next week, Frightmare is on the show. The entire band will be on here. Looking forward to talking to them. And the week after that, I can't believe after that we're in April already. Amazing. Billy Graziati from Biohazard, it will be on the show. He's got his Billy Bio stuff going on the last couple of years, and we'll be talking to him the week after next. I have to line up some guests. I'm talking with Jeremy from Heaven Hell Records. He has a few releases coming out, and we're going to try to get those guests on in April. There's also a few other ones I'm going to try to set up. And talking about guests that we'll never have on the show again, I forgot, I think it was last week I played Cobra Spell, so I reached out to Sonia and Alex about coming on. I know they got the message. They couldn't even be decent enough human beings to respond. You could have said no thank you. You could have said yes. My feelings aren't going to get hurt. But they didn't even respond, and that pisses me off more. So you'll never hear me play any music by those bands on this show ever again. And that includes Jack Starr's new band because, it's not a new band, but Burner Slug, because he's the new singer in that band. So that's it. The first people to be banned and put in the book on the new platform was Rika. We have a really big book from Blog Talk Radio when we were on there, but there's 2 more names we're adding to the list right now. All right, let me see. What can we do? I don't know. Let's play a couple of songs. How about we do... We got this, we got this, we got this, we got that, we got this. How about we do some Maltese Falcon? I don't think we played them yet this year. Here's Metal Rush.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom comes, thy will be done, on earth as it is in hell. And yeah, though I walk through the valleys, the shadows of death, I shall fear no evil.
All right. I don't remember if you. I think it was 2016. We had Seeking Space K from Black Death. That was Fear No Evil on the show, and oh my God, I think that interview was like 90 minutes long. All I said was hello, how you doing, and he just started rambling on for like I think almost an hour before I was able to get another word in, and then he went off like another 15 or 20 minutes after that. He's a funny guy. He's a great guy to talk to. You can find him on Facebook. I think he goes on the Paul Mandrake, and he has an account on the Seeking Space K too. But I think the Paul Mandrake one he uses the most. Real funny guy. He's like from the Jeff Water School of Interview. You just say hello, and they take over everything, and they just start talking and talking and talking. By the time the thing was done, I was like, I didn't even get to ask him, I think, more than 2 questions. I had so many things to talk about. Maybe I'll reach out to him again, and we'll try to get him on here. But he was definitely a funny guy, and I enjoyed having him. All right, we're going to wrap it up here tonight. I want to thank Dennis Schwan from Borrow Time and Sanction. I do apologize that we missed a little bit in the beginning of the interview, but nothing much was said outside of greetings. And next week, Frightmare will be on the show. I'll make sure I set the cables up before the show starts so we don't have the same problem next week. All right, how about we wrap it up here tonight with a little Tokyo Blade, Sunrise in Tokyo. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. I'll see you next Sunday night.